Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Karpanya Doshopahata Swabhavaha Prachami Tvam Dharma Samudha Chetaha Yashchehasya Nishchitam Bruhitan Me Sishyasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. Om Vang Me Manasi Pratishtita Mano Me Vachi Pratishthitam Avira Virma Edhi Vedasya Ma Anishtaha Shrutam Me Ma Prahasihi Anena Dhitena Ahoratran Sandadhami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu tadvaktaram avatu mam avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnevihi Shunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashya Makshabhir Yajatraha Sthirairange Tushtubhagvam Sastanu Vashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho arishthanemihi swasti no vrihaspati dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aham Vrikshasya Reriva Kirti Prishtham Gireriva Urdhva Pavitro Vajiniva Swa Amritam Asmi Draviragvam Savarchasam Sumedha Amritokshitaha Iti Trishankur Vedanuvachanam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Narayan, everyone.
Narayan, everyone. Amazingly well chanted, Kakoli. Very, very well done. You've got the nuances really, really spot on. I think the only piece that now you need to work on would be that chota a ki matra, bade a ki matra, which I understand comes from the, the language influence. But you're doing fantastically well. Like all the nuances were almost correctly caught on. So well done. Thank you.
I will try. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so we have amongst us a new participant today. Yes, so we have Bhavna and Sachin. So thank you so much for joining us, Bhavna and Sachin.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome to the class. We would love to start off by getting a little introduction here, quick one. So I'll pass it on to you for a quick round of introduction of yourself and how long you've been part of the Gita Parivar. Just give us a sense of that.
What brings you to it?
Yeah, and what brings you to the Gita class today?
So, my name is Bhavna Kreja, and we've been living in Singapore for almost 10 years now. But I became a part of the Gita class only in February this year when we shifted to our new house, and I found a group of ladies doing the car. Though the fact is that we both are followers of Krishna, so we always wanted to understand Gita more deeply and study Gita more deeply. But in our daily hustle and bustle, sometimes we don't get time, even with good intent. So that is why when I found the class, I just grabbed the opportunity. And gradually I came to know that there's a class for kids also, and there's a class for couples also. So then when I found about the kids class, I enrolled my boy into it a couple of weeks back. And then when I found about the couples class, so here we are
Here
in the
we are.
class today.
That's amazing. So the class you joined, Bhavna, was Himanshu Didi's class, is it?
No, I joined Savita ji's class. I'm living in the West Coast in Jurong. So
Okay.
she's from Woodland.
Got it. And so you joined in February. Did you start from the top? Her?
Started from chapter 10. They were in the middle of chapter 10 at that time.
Okay.
But I said that, and I also realized that, yeah, Gita, Bhagavad Gita, the journey can start from, I mean, it's a gyan where you can start and you learn a lot from anywhere you pick, you know. I was also initially skeptical that I'm not starting from the beginning, so will I be able to understand as much, you know, but
Got it. Got it. And your son, whose class has he joined?
he's in Himanshu ji's class, the Saturday morning class, kids class.
So he's with Himanshu Didi. Okay, got it. All right. So that's really wonderful to know. Thank you so much for coming in. So we are also actually on chapter 10, in the middle of chapter 10. So there seems to be something there for you. Both of the classes starting off on chapter 10. That's such a coincidence. So Bhagwanji, but Bhagwanji doesn't create coincidences. Okay. Now, Gita, as you understand by now, it is divided into 3 shataks: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Gyan Yoga. Right. So we are we are basically through the middle of Bhakti Yoga right now. In most cases, most of us, we are Karma Yogis. Most of us, all of us are Karma Yogis. Okay. So starting off on chapter 1 always helps, because then you start, like Bhagwanji knows where we are and he takes us from that. He meets us at that level and then he takes us slowly over the now, it doesn't mean that you always have to start from chapter 1. You can start from the middle, like in our class also, Kumar's class, when we were studying with him the Gita. There were a lot of people who joined in the middle, various chapters along the way. And then once that round finished, they came back to start from the top again, to start the next round. That has happened. In certain cases, when you join too late, like when I joined my very first round, I started in I think chapter 16 or 17, which was like really fag end. And then obviously my questions were really, really basic. So I was booted out of the class saying, please join from the top again. So it really depends. So I waited until they finished that round of 80 chapters and I started from top. So totally depends. So we are on chapter 10. We'll take it from there. But there are, I think if for our class, we've got recordings from chapter 2 onwards.
Okay.
So you can listen into them, not an issue at all. Whenever you have time, you go for a walk, whatever, like just listen in, it would be helpful. We will try and explain some basic concepts along the way to make it easy for you to understand. We're not using so and feel free to stop us wherever there are questions. We'll take it from there. And I understand this is a class for you to start to get a sense of how the structure of the class is, but there are other classes as well that have been much more recent. So if you wish, after this class, I'll share the list with you and you can see which one is more appropriate for you, time-wise, chapter-wise, etc. Right? And then you can see which you want to eventually join.
We've done some YouTube videos for Bhagavad Gita, so we have a bit of idea, not the details.
Not in as much detail. Like we started on YouTube video with explain shlok by shlok with the meaning, you know.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Let's keep our fingers crossed and see if we can catch up.
Amazing, amazing. No, don't worry. I mean, Bhagwan ji knows कि हम लोगों को ना we need a lot of there's a lot of repetition that will happen along the way because we don't learn in one go, right? We are not that great listeners as Arjun. Okay, so coming back to the class now. So we are on chapter 10 Vibhuti Yoga, and Bhagwan ji in this chapter is explaining to us how to find him in the world around us, how to find his manifestations around us, right? Because through this, and I'll just do a very quick recap for Sachin and Bhavna here, a very like 2-minute recap here. Basically, in Bhakti Yoga, we are so Bhakti Yoga chapter started from chapter 7, 8, 9, and now 10. At no point of time does he talk about, when we think of bhakti, we always think about puja, upasana, rituals, going to the temple and stuff like that, right? At no point of time thus far, he has talked about that aspect of bhakti at all. Okay. He has been talking to us about, he's been telling us, how do you find him in the world? How do you understand who he really is? He's trying to explain himself at a level of what is his essence, okay? And he tries to explain that he is present, he's immanent in everything around us. But because we guys, our intellect is at a very gross level, so then he starts to give us examples. And through those examples, he tries to tell us, okay, now when you see this thing, this is me. When you see that thing, that is also me. Okay. And once he's gone through 9 chapters, and when he reaches 10th chapter, by this time, Arjun has reached a point where he started to really, really understand how everything that he sees around himself is a manifestation of him. And he's feeling really awed by that concept. Okay, because he's beginning to really realize who Bhagwan Ji potentially really is. Okay, he still doesn't understand. There's no way he can even understand, right? Because we are limited beings, and Bhagwan Ji is unlimited in nature. So, so at one point of time in the beginning of chapter 10, he finally goes down to Bhagwan Ji, and he actually does his is the first time in one of the shlokas here in chapter 10, he finally reaches out to Bhagwanji, and he calls him out with 5, 6 different appellations in a single shloka. It's the only shloka in which he refers to him with so many different appellations. That's because now he's getting filled with an extraordinary sense of like he's overwhelmed with his feelings towards Bhagwanji for the first time. And how he gets there, he doesn't get there through blind faith. He gets there by understanding who Bhagwanji is. And that understanding it naturally evokes those feelings in Arjun. Okay. And then he tells Bhagwanji that, please tell me all about your qualities. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything behind. And Bhagwanji tells him, look, I can start talking about myself, but then it will never end. It is limitless. You cannot understand everything, and I can't tell everything. So I will tell you about the special manifestations of me, only the very special manifestations. Okay. And then he starts to tell about some of his what type of manifestations. These are qualities, or these are, in certain cases, these are more physical aspects, but in most cases in chapter 10, he's talking about metaphysical aspects, metaphysical manifestations of himself. Okay. And there are a lot of names being used in this chapter. Those names in our mythological stories represent certain characters, but we have to go beyond those characters. We have to understand what those characters really represent. Everything, end of the day, has to come back to my me story. If we are not able to condense what we are reading and connect it back to my me story, what it means for me on a day-to-day basis, what are the principles that I need to apply, how should my behavior, my life should change, how should I change, then I have not understood Gita. So everything that we read here has to be brought back to an understanding of my me story, what it means to me on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So with that, we will start with shloka 33. say, Anmol, would you like to read with us today? We'll start with connection.
Yeah. Mentioning other subtle entities, the Lord says,
Aksharanam akaro asmi,
Aksharanam akarosmi,
dvandha samasikasya cha,
Dvanda samasikasya cha,
ahamevakshayah kalah,
Ahame vakshayah kaloha,
dataham vishwato mukhah.
Dhataham vishwato mukha.
So Aksharanam akaro asmi. It is of all the akshars, right? So he's talking about akshars and he's the akar. All right. Dwandaha samakisasya cha. He is the dwand of all the samas. He's dwand amongst all samas. Ahame vakshayah kalaha. I am the everlasting time. Akshay Kal. Akshay, the Kal, the time that does not get destroyed. Dhata ham Vishwato Mukha. I am the Vishwato Mukha. Dhata ham. Dhata ham is the creators. So basically he's saying of all the creators, I am Brahma.
Among letters, I am the letter A. Among the compounds of words, I am the compound called Dvanda. I am myself the everlasting time element. I am the dispenser of results of action, with countenance everywhere. Other subtle entities. The Sanskrit letter for A has a sound which pervades the sounds of all letters, thus typifying the self-pervading every manifestation.
Yeah. So now he's giving us, he's taking certain examples from every aspect of life, every aspect of subtle and gross aspects, and telling us who does he represent or what, how do you connect to him in those aspects, right? So now we have letters, right? The language is made of letters. And he says that if you take the alphabets, I am the letter A, I am the Akshar A. Why is he Akshar A? Because it is the start. This is the starting of all alphabet, right? So he's that. But also there is no letter that does not have him at the end. So it is ma, for example, ends with chota la ends with chota any letter that you take, right? And that's why when we read Sanskrit, right, you will see that we put an emphasis on the letters. That emphasis is whenever you have a full letter, you always complete it with a full verb, ma, not quick. It's only when the letters are half that we finish it off. For example, in shloka 35, the first word is Brahatsam, right? So in general, we would say Brahatsam, but that's not the correct way to pronounce it. It is Brahatsama. There's a letter in the end, Brahatsama, right? Tatha Samnam. Now in Samnam, there is that Ang ki matra, which is half ma. So you finish Samnam. Samnam is different from Brahatsama, right? So the Akshar A pervades every single letter. And hence, of all the alphabets, he is the Akshar A, which is the same concept as the self-pervading the entire universe, everything that we see around us.
Second, Dvanda. When two words are compounded, they give rise to a third word, carrying a connotation different from that of either of the compounded words, except when the compounded is copulative. This type of compounding is called Dvandva in Sanskrit. This is similar to the compounding of the self and non-self in creation, in which both are cognized in the compound form as well as separately.
So basically, the concept of samas, it's called samas, is when you take two words and you combine them to create one word, 2 or 3 or more, whatever number of words, okay? There are 6 types of samas, and the resulting word is called samaspad. There are 6 types of samas. Of that, there are 4 that are important. Now, there is a difference, right? When you put, say, two words together and the first word is more important and it has more, it exerts more meaning into the compound word, then that one is called bahubrihi samas. Okay, the words themselves are not that important for you. Okay, but similarly, so there are different ways in which, you know, words carry weightage into the words put together. Dvandva samas is the one in which both the words retain their original meaning, carry equal weightage in the compound word, and they also at the same time create a new word without losing the meaning of their original words. All right, so original words retain their meaning and the compound word meaning is created from the original meaning. Okay, that is why Dvandva Samas is considered superior to others. And Bhagwanji says that of all in this grammar of putting the words together, I am Dvandva Samas. An example of Dvandva Samas would be Radha Krishna. So Radha and Krishna, both the words are important to create the compound word Radha Krishna. Okay, and the meaning of the word compounded word Radha Krishna comes equally from Radha and Krishna put together. Neither Radha loses its meaning nor Krishna loses its meaning. So that's an example of Dvandva Samas. Okay. Now, why does he say that I am Dvandva Samas? Why is that so important? He's saying that's important because it represents the concept of Paramatma and Jivatma. Okay, so Paramatma and Jivatma, they both are important in their own ways, and them coming together to create the whole idea of us going back to Bhagwanji, the Jivatma realizing its true self and becoming the Paramatma. That concept is reflected in Dvandva Samas. Okay.
Third, the time element. As distinct from the immanent form of time mentioned in shloka 30 here, the time element is mentioned in its transcendent form. The former is the basis of all reckoning, and the latter is the basis of all being. This is an aspect of the Lord's sublimity.
Yeah. So in Shlok 30, he had told that he is Kalaha Kalayatamaham, right? Of all the reckoners, the way we count things, I am time. Okay. And here again, he says that he is Akshay Kal. I am the Akshay Kal. So how is this time element different from the other time element? The difference is how we have in previous chapters seen that there is a transcendental aspect of things, and then there is the paraprakriti and the aparaprakriti, right? So anything that is in the aparaprakriti, that is a part of this materialistic nature, changes and it has a start and an end. Okay, so in Shlok 30, the time element that we are talking about is the time element of this world, right? So here, as we see, we count the concept of day and night comes from Surya, right? The sun rises and goes away, and that creates the concept of time for us. And that is what then we have divided up using clock over hours and minutes and years and everything, right? But it comes from Surya, comes from the sun at the basic element. So, so that is the time being talked about. But this time changes. It is constantly changing. It is constantly counting. And this time can also completely get diminished. Because in Mahapralaya, as we know, even the Surya is destroyed. Right? Now, you can only count or you can only calculate or you can only figure out that something is changing when you have something unchanging against it as a background. Otherwise, there's no way for you to know that something is changing, right? So that the constant background for us is sun in this materialistic world. When the sun is also not there, when that background has changed, how would you know? At that time, the Ganana or the concept of change, that background comes from Paramatma himself. And that sublimity of Paramatma is the Akshay Kal. It is never changing. Never changing time. It is that time which eats up everything. Ultimately, the entire creation is eaten up by that Kal. that Akshay Kal, because it is never changing, because there is no Vikriti in it, it is pure, and that it stays as it is at all times. It is considered the sublimity of Bhagwanji. So the whole yuga cycle that we had read, right? That the concept of those 4 yugas, the changing of the yugas, the Mahapralaya at the end of, the Brahma's day, the Brahma's night, all of that. Where do we get that concept from? That Brahmaji has created the creation, and then even Brahmaji goes into the Vileen, right? He's also taken away, even he dies, and then he starts all over again. So there is something that stands as a background, as a witness of even that. That Akshay Kal is his sublimity. It is only because of that background the whole concept of creation and destruction even happens. Okay, so think of this as the Akshay Kal being the framework, and the time element in this world is a reflection or a what's the word when you create a instance. It's an instance of that framework. Okay, yeah, so I guess that's the meaning, the framework and the instance, the real instance that you see, right? So like you have frameworks to create something, and then you create an instance, a cookie out of a cookie cutter, right? Like that. That's the difference between the two time elements that we've talked about.
Fourth, dispenser. All the forms of creation are the result of impressions created by actions of previous lives. And the irrevocable element in all these transformations is the will of the Lord for a just and merciful dispensation. As such, his dispensations runs through entire creation. He exists in all these manifestations on the basis of consciousness of the self, with his countenances on all the planes, physical, mental, and spiritual.
Yeah. So here he's saying that I am Vishwato Mukhaha, somebody whose countenance is on all the planes. So a person with lots of eyes, ears, faces, mouths, everywhere. Okay. Later in towards the end of Bhakti Yoga, he's actually in the very next chapter, he's going to show his Vishwato Mukham form to Arjun. Okay. Now this Vishwato Mukham form in this concept, what it means here for us is that he's seeing everything. All right, whether you are aware of it or not, he's seeing everything, he's listening to everything, and not just what you do, but what you think and what you feel inside, which is why we are constantly focusing on what is inside of us and not as what is outside of us, right? As we had discussed, everything starts from a level of thought, bhavna, the emotions, the feelings with which we do something, then comes the action, and then comes the object of the action, right? And action and the object of the action are things that we are not concerned about at all. They will be taken care of if we think about the purpose, the thought, and the bhav, the emotion, the feelings with which we do things. If we take care of these two things, the rest too will take care of themselves by itself. But unfortunately, we are constantly stuck in the last two. We are always thinking and judging actions. What did this person do? Not what this person did, but what was the intention behind doing this? What was the feeling behind doing this action? We are constantly only judging actions and the object, the results of those actions, right? We have to move away from that, right? So he's saying that he is somebody who knows all those planes. He knows what you're thinking. He knows what you are feeling, with what bhavna you are doing an action. Then he sees the action and he sees the results of the action. And he's the Suhrid, right? He's not trying to, he does not punish. Bhagwanji does not punish. Bhagwanji has created a world with its rules. There are rules around this world. Everything in this world is governed by those rules. And those rules are the rules of nature. Okay. And those rules apply equally to everyone. Gravity will apply to everyone regardless of how, whether you are good, whether you are bad. There is no morality in rules. There is no judgment in rules. Whoever you are, those rules will apply to you equally. All right. And who is the person so what do these rules represent? The rules get their power from Bhagwanji. So he is the dispenser of all these things, but he does not do it himself. He does this through his Prakriti. Okay? And he does everything for just and merciful, in a just and merciful nature. So justice is meted out through nature. Mercy is shown by Bhagwanji. Nature does not show mercy at all. Nature does judgment. You did A, here is the program, this was your input, this will be your output. Okay, so that is done by nature does justice. Mercy is shown by Bhagwanji. Only he is capable of showing mercy. And that mercy is based on our thoughts, the purpose, and basically it depends on our antakaran, right? Not our actions. It depends on our antakaran, the state of our antakaran, based on which he can show mercy. And he does everything for our ultimate welfare, because he is our ultimate benefactor. He's our Suhrid. He's not doing things to punish you. He's doing things so that you can learn and you can be on the path of your ultimate welfare. So of all the dispensers of justice, of all the creators in this world, he says, I am Brahma. I am the Brahma, because I am the one who creates everything and dispenses this world. Okay. Bhagyashree, you will read next.
Yeah. The Lord now mentions the phenomena of beginning and end of beings and the qualities which govern the activities of life.
Mrityu sarva haraschaham. Okay. Mrityu sarva haraschaham.
Mrityu sarva haraschaham.
Udbhavascha bhavishyatam.
Udbhavascha bhavishyatam.
Kirti shrirvakcha narinam.
Kirti shrivakcha narinam.
Smritir medha dhrati kshama.
Mritir medha dhriti kshama.
We'll read.
I am the all-devouring death, and I am the origin of all those who would come into being. Among the qualities denoted by feminine appellations, I am fame, prosperity, speech, memory, intelligence, firmness, and forgiveness. Entities governing activities of life, death, and origin. All the phenomena of life have a beginning and an end, but the self is the substratum underlying all. Hence, the Lord is the end or death, as well as origin of all phenomena. In Sanskrit, the qualities mentioned in the second line are portrayed by words of feminine gender. These qualities, when manifested through a human being of either sex, are indicative of a divine nature and are therefore the manifestation of the Lord's sublimity.
Yeah. So in the last class, we did the shlok 10.32, in which he says that he is the reason for all creations, right? And before that, in 10.20, he said, I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all living beings. So in 10.20, he said, I am the start, the middle, and the end of all living beings. Then in 10.32, we took it forward further, saying that all the creation that you see, I am the one that's manifesting them as the beginning, the middle, and the end. Okay. Now in Shlok 34, he further says that I am the origin of all the life, but I'm also the death. Right? Now death, he's saying I'm the all devouring death. Right? Now, what does all devouring death really mean? Mrityu or death has a very special vibhuti. It makes us forget everything. All right. It makes us forget our worries, our relationships, whatever, physical gross form of things that we were holding on to and our baggages. It has this really vilakshana, a very special quality that after death, you're free of all of those things. Okay. And that quality death gets from Bhagwanji himself. It is not a quality of death. It is a quality of Bhagwanji manifested in death. Why is this so special? Why is this important? Now, you know, while living this life, way we get so attached to life. We are attached to our relationships. We are attached to our things in this world, and they create so much of they create so much of worries. They create so much of problems in our daily lives, right? If we were to remember all our previous lives, if we did not forget them after death, the number of those relationships, all the relationships we've had thus far, all the problems that were associated with those relationships, all the baggages we had with those relationships, all the other people, all the the worries about what is mine, what is not, all of that baggage would be way too much for us to process. In our limited form, with the limited body, senses, mind, intellect that we have, we will be unable to process all of that and move forward. It would be paralyzing for us. So, as he is our ultimate benefactor, for our own welfare, he makes sure that those physical aspects are completely forgotten and we leave those worries behind. These physical gross aspects are the heaviest. So we leave that heaviness behind us when we move to the next phase of our lives. But what do we carry? We carry the subtle impressions in our antahkaran, in our chitta. We carry them forward to clear in our next life, which is where the prarabdha comes into being. Okay? And now we'll read a lot more about that through the rest of the aspects, right? So he's saying now, there are some qualities he's mentioned here, right? Kirti, Shri, Vak, Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, and Kshama. 7 qualities have been mentioned here. If you read the Bhagavad Puran or any of the Vedas, they are represented as women, and as qualities, they are considered to be feminine qualities in people. In our Ved Purans, the 5 of these are called Raja Daksh. He was a Prajapati. His daughters, 5 of them. Which are they? Kirti, Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, and Kshama are considered 5 daughters of Prajapati Daksh. He was a very Daksh as a word concept means somebody who's very skillful. So he was an extremely skillful king, extremely skillful. And naturally, his daughters, the 5 daughters he had, were Kirti, Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, and Kshama. It's a natural understanding, right? Now you see how does it apply to us, okay? And he says that these 5 plus Shri. Shri was the daughter of Maharshi Bhrigu, and Vak is the daughter of Brahmaji himself. Brahmaji and Saraswati Ji's daughter is Vak. Okay. Now, what do they represent? These qualities, they are represented in our mythological texts as women, and what they do, there are stories around each of them. Now, as we understand that they represent certain things, subtle things in ourselves, right? Tat pinde, tat brahmande, yat pinde, tat brahmande, right? Whatever is inside of us is outside of us. So all of these things are represented inside of us. Kirti specifically, Kirti is when you have good qualities inside of you. When a person has good qualities and he uses those good qualities for the benefit of the community he's part of, it creates fame for him. It creates respect amongst the people for this person. And that respect and fame is termed Kirti. Okay. Then Shri. Shri is, there are 2 types of prosperity. Shri's prosperity. Prosperity are of 2 types. That of physical nature, Sthavar and Jangam. Sthavar means things that are unmoving. And Jangam is the type of prosperity that comes from things that are moving. So this is from an old concept where Sthavar would mean stuff like land, wealth, money, house. And Jangam would be like, if you own, guy, bhains, sheep, like you own those things, they were also property, right? They would bring prosperity to you. So these two types of things were called Shri. So they are prosperity, physical prosperity in this world. That's Shri. Vak is, so Vak is basically a type of speech. That type of speech which allows you to communicate well to people. That type of speech which allows you to convey knowledge, which allows you, which causes people to understand that and think of you as being very knowledgeable, think of you as wise. That specific type of speech is the one that is referenced here, and it is called Vak. Okay, it also creates kirti. It creates fame and respect amongst the people. So naturally, it's a very good quality to have. Again, this quality is Bhagwanji's manifestation in a person, right? Yash, prosperity that you see in people, when you see somebody famous, that fame that that person is getting is a reflection of Bhagwanji's blessings. It's a reflection of Bhagwanji's power. Okay. Then Smriti. Smriti is the ability to remember something. It's memory. Okay. Ability to bring forth something that you had heard of or seen before at an appropriate time. Right? Now, you may have a very large, memory drive, but that memory drive, if it sits somewhere in a warehouse which you are unable to access and get that memory out when you really need it, it's useless, right? It may stay. You might have that memory, but it is not. You can't access it. So the specific type of memory being talked about here is that which is available. It's the RAM memory. Right? It is not your tape memory sitting in a warehouse. It is your RAM memory, cloud-based memory, which you can access as and when you need it. Okay. So that is the memory that is being referenced to here. And that memory, the fact that you remember things, as we all know, everything that we see around us, whether we notice it or not, is there inside of us. We have that in our subconscious. All the impressions, right? We just are unable to recall a lot of it. That type of memory which will create a recall when it is required is the memory being referenced here and is a manifestation of Bhagwanji's Vibhuti. Okay. The next one is Medha. Now, Medha is application of Smriti, application of memory. Memory is rote memory. Whatever, there was a formula, you have ratified it, it's there in your memory. And then now, if you remembered it, you saw it, you remembered it, you don't remember, you can't recall it when the test arrives. That is not the memory being reflected here, right? The memory here that is being reflected is the memory that is able to recall that formula when you need to use it. Medha takes that Smriti one step forward. Medha is the intelligence which allows you to use that memory and figure out how to apply it in the context now. Okay. So memory allows you to learn the principles and recall them. And Medha allows you to figure out how to apply it in a certain context, right? So if we read Gita and we learn all the shlokas, all 700 shlokas imprinted in our mind, but we are unable to recall the shloka when asked, then it's of no use. You need to be able to recall the shlokas as and when required. Okay. And then knowing, Medha comes in when you see that, okay, this was the principle. This particular principle is supposed to be invoked in this situation for me. And then being able to interpret it and say, this is how I should apply it in this situation, right? No situation is the same. Every situation for every single person is completely unique, like a snowflake. But the principles are universal. Being able to say, out of this repertoire of my principles, this particular principle applies. I take that principle and I apply it in that context correctly is intelligence. It is Medha. Okay. That is the Medha being referenced here. And that ability, that quality is Bhagwan Ji's representation. It is his blessing. It is him reflecting in us when we are, when any one of us shows that Medha in any capacity. Okay. So Medha is application of memory. So it's that, like, the difference between the rote memory exam and the open book exam. In open book exam, there is no, it doesn't matter what you remember, what you don't remember, but you have to remember which page to go to if you have to find a principle. Then Medha is, now you have a problem, actually apply that principle. So knowing a formula is not enough. Now you need to know how to apply it in that to solve that problem. That is Medha, the open book exam. Okay. Dhriti. Dhriti is ability to hold on to the knowledge, the wisdom. Now we come to Swadhyay. Okay, we come every Sunday to Swadhyay. We come to Satsang. We listen to everything in the Satsang. Then we do our own Swadhyay, right? In most cases, you will say, yeah, I know this principle, right? I've heard of this before, several times before. Okay, but does it really make an impression? Do you actually, are you actually able to invoke it when the time comes and actually apply it? That is very difficult, right? If you are not able to retain the satsang, things go from here and come out from here. After 1 hour of satsang, we are back in the sansar, forgotten everything that Gita talked about. That means there is lack of dhriti in us. If we have the right dhriti, if we have strong dhriti, the ability to hold on to it, then whatever goes, it goes from both the things and it stays here. And then we are able to invoke it and actually use it at the time that is required. That ability to hold on to the right things is dhriti. Actually, dhriti would basically say hold on to anything, right? But the specific dhriti we are talking about is dhriti to hold on to the right principles, the right things, right? We can get addicted to wrong habits also, right? We get addicted to drinking. We get addicted to smoking. That is not the dhriti. But the concept is the same. Ability to hold on to something tightly. Ability to hold on to the right principles, the right habits is the specific dhriti that is Bhagwanji's manifestation in us. So if we are unable to hold on long enough to the principles to apply them, then we need to ask Bhagwanji for that dhriti. Dhriti की कमी है हमें. Okay. Next comes Kshama. Kshama is the, like in simplest words, Kshama is not forgiveness, right? But what is the quality of forgiveness that we're talking about, right? Somebody says, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, fine, I forgive you. Okay. That's like, in a layman way. But the quality of Kshama that Bhagwanji is talking of, that we must practice in our daily lives, goes much deeper than the words. Much deeper than the words spoken. So you speak Kshama, you say, I forgive you, but you really mean it from the bottom of your heart. You don't want to, even if you are in the powerful position to give punishment to that person, okay? But you choose not to apply any punishment. It could be an aggressive punishment. It could be a passive-aggressive punishment. We are all aware of it. How much of passive-aggressive punishment do we mete out to our spouses or to our children? I will not talk to you, or just like, walk around with a muh fula hua, right? Passive-aggressive punishment. And you've not given, like, you'll say, yeah, okay, fine, I'll forgive you, right? Your spouse makes a mistake, yeah, okay, I forgive you. But you've not really forgiven if you're still walking around with a fula hua muh, right? Or you're holding on to a grudge inside of yourself. When you really, really give Kshama, now this Kshama is again important when you are in the powerful position, when you have the ability to actually mete out a punishment. Okay, your boss says something to you and you have no ability to strike back, and then you say, I forgave him. That's not real Kshama. Kshama shobhati us bhujang ko jiske paas garal ho, usko kya jo danthin vishhin vineet saral ho. Okay, so now you have to be in a position of power, and you choose to forgive the person by not meting out any punishment physically or mentally or emotionally. And on top of that, you pray to Bhagwan Ji to say, this person made a mistake. Now, this is again, now the Kshama, you don't have to give Kshama in every situation. Okay. There are cases where punishment is required. We are talking of a situation where somebody's made a genuine mistake. In most cases, we don't even accept genuine mistakes. No, you did it on purpose. Right? No, you did it on purpose to hurt me. You did it on purpose to insult me. You insulted me. Like, we go on to that thing. You did this to, make me look bad in front of that person. We hold on to those notions, right? We don't accept that people make mistakes. When people make a mistake, we need to have a large heart to forgive them. And forgive them by asking Bhagwan Ji, he made a mistake, she made a mistake. Please forgive this person and make sure that in this lok or in parlok, there is no punishment meted out to that person. That is the level of forgiveness that is being talked about here. And that's how we should practice forgiveness. Half the time we have a fight, we forgive, but we don't really forgive. We hold on to the grudges. 10 years later also that will come up. You fight again and you did this 5 years ago. That is not forgiveness. You've not forgiven if you are holding on to a grudge and if you're bringing it up again. Real, true forgiveness means that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Never again will you ever bring it up in any conversation because you have forgotten it. If you have not forgiven, now forgiveness, why is this forgiveness so important? This forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for yourself. If you are finding it difficult to forgive someone else, then ask yourself, where all are you punishing your own self first? Where have you not forgiven yourself first? Yat pinde tat brahmande. Whatever is inside of us, how we treat ourselves is how we treat others. When we hold others to high standards, when we get angry with other people, when we are screaming at other people, when we are unforgiving to other people, the people we hurt the most ourselves are our own selves because we are constantly berating ourselves first. We are constantly getting angry with ourselves first for what we have done or not done. We are constantly unforgiving of our own selves first. However, so when you see yourself behaving in a certain manner with other people, then the most important question to ask is, how are you treating yourself in that space? I'll come to that question, Bhavna ji and Sachin ji, right? So this is very important exercise. First, start with forgiving yourself. When you find yourself unable to forgive someone in any situation, ask yourself, where are you not being? First forgive yourself. And then forgive the other person. And do this forgiveness exercise again and again and again until the mull inside of you is completely gone and you are free of that burden of unforgiveness that you're carrying inside of you. And if we don't do that, that unforgiveness, that anger, the annoyance or whatever irritation we are carrying inside of us will become cancerous to us. It will create diseases inside us. The anger we hold on to, the upset we hold on to hurts us the most. Anger is the worst form of thing. And grudges, by the way, are a form of anger. Ability to not forgive others is a form of anger. When we look at Devi's forms, right? The anger form of Devi is Kali. And she's called Kali for a reason. Devi, they show as very beautiful, resplendent, and extremely, fair complexioned and everything. And when she becomes angry, she becomes Kali. Her entire skin burns off. And she is shown as a skeleton, black skeleton with this red eyes, red tongue. Very, very scary. So what has happened? She's burnt herself first. That's the nature of anger. We burn our own. कहते हैं ना हिंदी में कहते हैं खून जला रहे, अपना खून क्यों जला रहे हो? Actually, that it does that. In reality, it burns us from inside and causes all kinds of problems. So Kshama is not for someone else. Kshama is first and foremost for ourselves. Right? Yeah, Sachin ji, Bhavna ji, if you have a question.
I got the concept of the Shama, but I couldn't marry that concept with the first thing that you talked about, that it needs to be coming from the status of power. If you don't have the power, so it does not need to be that you need to have power for, I mean, I'm talking about a concept of perpetrator and the person who's aggrieved, right? So we say, hey, you have to forgive. Not the person who needs to forgive is not at the power, right? That person is the sufferer in this case, and the perpetrator may be more powerful than that. So how do you relate these two together? I completely understand the need for forgiveness, and that part is understood. The first part is where I'm not still clear about.
Sure. So these are two different situations that we're talking about. In the first situation where I said somebody makes a mistake, okay? Somebody makes a mistake, could be your helper, could be your child, could be your team member, right? These people make a mistake. We tend to sometimes hold on to those things, right? Our spouses, our parents, we are constantly like, we are in a state of power there. We can cause them hurt in some capacity or the other, right? Because they care about us. That's why we can hurt them, right? And that's the space where I'm saying that when you're in a space of power, you have to forgive. You have to forgive. You have to make sure that you're not punishing people. Okay. Now, the other state that you're talking about is a completely different situation. Now, this is a status of aggressor and aggrieved. Okay. Now, that's a very different dynamic, which we can actually talk about. It's a psychological dynamic, where you will, I mean, there are so many layers to why somebody's an aggressor and why somebody's an aggrieved, right? These are roles we tend to play. And the aggriever is aggrieved, is in a lot of cases aggrieved because he gives that power to the aggressor in the first place. Okay, this is in either case, you have to forgive. Even if you're aggrieved, first of all, you have to, when you actually drill down to those several hundred layers, you have to first forgive yourself for giving the power to the other person to hurt you, to allow to continue to stay in that situation if you've not taken steps to get out of that, right? You are a part of the problem, right? That's the first thing. If you are in a situation, you have to understand that you have created this dynamic outside of you, whether you are an aggressor, whether you are the aggrieved. The first aspect of Gita is you take the power inside of you. We tend to blame the world around us for everything that happens to us and give the power outside of us. The locus of power, we quickly shift outside of us. This person did this to me. This was the case. I could not have said something. I could not have done this. This person has done this. This person has done that. Okay. And we blame people. The first principle of Gita is take the power of control inside of you. You have the power and the choice, and you have created this situation around you. And because you have created it, you also have the power to walk out of the situation and create a new situation for yourself. And that's when it starts from doing several rounds of self-reflection to see, how did I create the situation for myself and what can I do to get out of it? And I need to, first thing is forgive myself that I created the situation in the first place for myself. It's okay. It happened. I am sorry. I'm fine. And you're not going to kill yourself for the mistakes you made or ignorance or whatever reason caused you to be in that space. And then forgive the other person for the role he played in that situation, and not try and like, okay, now I'm going to get out of it and I will take a revenge on this person. Okay, get out of it. Now, again, these are very high level principles that I'm talking about. The way these principles get applied in specific situations are going to be very different, right? And in no case I'm saying that, you know, in a certain case, somebody's done something, we should not call the police or should not report or whatever, like none of that thing, right? It really depends. End of the day, principles have to be taken in a context to know how those principles will get applied, right? I hope I'm making some sense to you. But end of the day, if there is a specific situation that comes up, we should talk specifics of the situation to see how, first of all, which principle is invoked, and sometimes multiple principles, and then how should they be applied. The application of the principle in the action format can be very different. And the result of those actions can be very different. right? So you might end up seeing action A and action B, which look absolutely opposite to each other, but the principle behind them is exactly the same. But the action had to be different because the context for both of them were extremely different. Or you may end up seeing that two actions are exactly the same, but the bhav and the principle behind them were completely different. And so the change in your antakaran, the result, the object, the result that you create for yourself are completely different, even though on the face of it, the actions are exactly the same. Right? As an example, an action of killing someone, okay, violent action. In two different cases, the action of a soldier doing his duty and in the process ends up killing a terrorist or ends up killing somebody across the line of control, right, across the border, versus somebody who kills somebody to take their possessions or kill somebody out of anger and hatred, right? Action is exactly the same. You've taken life of someone, some another human being, but the reason you did it, the purpose and the bhav will make all the difference. Even in the context of where you say, okay, the principle is there is a soldier who's defending his country and he has killed an enemy soldier or killed a terrorist. Even there, while the purpose for two soldiers might exactly be the same, where their purpose is to defend their country and to do the duty that they have been put there for, but the bhav with which they do it, one person does it with the bhav of anger, upset, and hatred towards that person. He's an enemy soldier, kill him, da 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 da. Versus somebody who says, I am sorry, I know that you are also doing your duty, but I have to do my duty. I'm sorry, I have to do this. May your family find the strength to handle this. Like, yeah, there's a completely different bhav. Ends up killing the person. But the purpose and the bhav can be so different.
So can we then say that the forgiveness part is oblivious of your place of strength or weakness? It's a character that you need to build for yourself. And then of course, as you go along, it becomes difficult for both sides. Even if you're the sufferer or at the bar will give you the aura that I can and I will, and the sufferer will have no other option but to. I mean, if I think in that direction. So can I just then say, all right, forgiveness is a character that you build, irrespective of the state of being that you are maybe in. Would that be okay?
It's a good point. Small nuance there, right? End of the day, it's all about little nuances. When you start going down this route of thought and you do more manan and chintan on this, you will realize that, boss, I'm always in a state of power. There is no situation where I'm not in a state of power. I always have power. I always have choice. And hence, I must always be in a space of forgiveness. Do not ever find yourself in a space of deenta. You're never deen. अगर आप दीनता के भाव में चले जाएं एंड देन आप किसी को क्षमा कर रहे हैं, उसका कोई फायदा नहीं. पहले तो आपने एक मिस्टेक किया कि यू पुट योरसेल्फ सेइंग दैट आई एम अ दीन पर्सन, आई डू नॉट हैव पावर, एंड नाउ आई एम सेइंग नो बट आई वांट टू फॉरगिव समबडी. दैट कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ दीनता itself is wrong. There is no deenta ever. You're a very, very powerful person at all times in all situations. That's the starting point. You are Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. How can you not be powerful? You are all powerful. We forget that I am all powerful and hence I become Deen. So the moment you are being Deen, you have lost your connection to the Lord. You've forgotten the very essence of who you are. So bring back that power. And with that, Kshama naturally comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Kakuli.
A quick question to Ina. I mean, like forgiving is, I think, one of the most difficult virtues to have. But with so much satsang, we have had these discussions a couple of times over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then you, as you said, self-reflect to get into it, and you finally know that you move out of the situation and you forget and forgive maybe. However, I want to ask you one thing, which principle to use, because there's a situation where you have forgotten, you have forgiven the person, and then suddenly some really serious thing happens with that person, and you jump up and tell yourself, everything is fair in God's world. See, she did this to me, Today, she's the sufferer. So there is a principle. It's not about me forgiving. I am thinking God is now, He is the doer of everything. He is taking care. But that's also a wrong thing. Like if I have moved on, I have to have that humbleness. So my question is, what principle do I apply here so that that thought also gets arrested somewhere?
Correct. Good question. See, this is where we start to get into layers, deeper layers of self-reflection. अगर आपके अंदर ये थॉट आ रहा है किसी को देखकर, किसी की सफरिंग को देखकर, आपने किसी somebody did something to you, you did not go back and press charges, you did not go and hurt them overtly, okay, and you said I've forgiven, I've forgotten, I've moved on. But when something bad happens to them and the thought comes to you immediately, then somewhere deep inside you have not really forgiven. You've not forgiven. You have that small feeling of revenge inside of you that you're holding on to, and you're very happy that it has happened. Now, I said before, nature knows justice. Only Bhagwan Ji can show mercy. Aham Brahmasmi. Okay? Only you can show the mercy. Nature will take its course. You can't prevent it. If somebody is drinking alcohol on a daily basis, depending on the original starting constituent of that person's body, alcohol will take its own toll on that body. Okay, 100%. Whether you like it or not like it, you forgive that person. Oh, I forgive this person for drinking. I will never bring it up. It's his choice. He's my friend. I will meet him every day, but now I will not bring it up, and I will not be upset with him. I will not be angry with him that I keep telling him stop drinking. He's not drinking, but he continues to drink. But tomorrow, that whether you forgive, you don't forgive, nature will do its justice. It will have a toll. Now, what is the extent of that toll will depend on the starting constituent of his body and how he drinks or whatever. Like everything, there are hundreds of things that will change the way the impact will be there on this person, right? Nature will do its justice. Your job is when you forgive so totally that you pray to God, please, he's making a mistake or has made a mistake. I seek forgiveness for him. Please protect him. Give him sadbuddhi or protect him from the mistakes he has made. Okay, you really, really, truly do that. And when something really wrong happens to that person, depending on the situation you have, but depending on the relationship you have, first of all, you should have no sense of glee or happiness. You're like, yeah, I mean, the judgment has happened. It had to happen. If you are driving recklessly on the road, someday you will meet an accident. It's the law of nature. It's a law of probabilities. Okay, someday it will happen. It may not happen 20 times, it will happen 21st time. Okay, but you're not celebrating in that moment. And celebration doesn't mean you're going to open a champagne, but like you're not celebrating even inside of yourself. You actually truly feel sad. And then see, is there anything you can do to help this person at this stage now? Okay. And in a smaller form, it comes out in all of us in that I told you so attitude, which we do all the time to our spouses, our families, our children. Constantly, I told you so. Okay, you're doing something, I'm telling you to do something, you're not understanding it now, you will go ahead and you will do that anyway. I forgive you for doing it. Okay, fine, I'll support you. But when something goes wrong, when you had, I told you so, no? I told you this is going to happen. I told you so is a very subtle, small form of same thing. Not forgiven, and we are not standing there to support, to take care in a true manner. And sometimes you can see the train wreck happen slowly. The point is, you can't help it. You can do whatever you can to help out in the beginning. After that, you have to forgive, and you just know that, boss, this is my prarabdha. If I have to be there, I have to witness this train wreck, that is also my prarabdha, that I'm watching it. It's difficult sometimes, but I have to watch it. This is my prarabdha. And then I have to be there to pick up the pieces. Come what may. There are cases like that also. You will end up having. That's also a form of forgiveness. I think talking too many abstracts. It's difficult to assimilate when we get abstract. Yes, Visalakshi. Thank you. You've been really patient.
The forgiveness, if we can do forgiveness, but how we forgot the things. Forgot is difficult. See, if you forgot, then you are not either the lessons, whatever lessons we are learning about the lesson, or we are enjoying it. Like two things which happens in the life, right? We are learning or we are enjoying it. But forgiveness is, yeah, I forgive everything. But how you forgot is bit difficult. Forgive, yes, forgive is happening by nature through the practice. But forgot, if you forgot, how you learning the lesson from that, from any situation?
So Bhagwanji, in these 7 qualities that he's told us today, he's not told, he said he is Smriti. He did not say he's Asmriti or Vismriti. Okay? Asmriti is forgetfulness. Vismriti is wrong remembrance. You change the facts to what your opinion of them was, and then you color it up through your own lenses, and you remember that. That's Vismriti. Okay? He's not Asmriti, he's not Vismriti, he's Smriti. You remember things. You remember the lessons, but you forget, but you forgive. He's not asking you to forget. At no point of time he said, we use the terminologies forgive and forget. What forgive and forget really entails is you forgive and you forget your anger or upset that you held on to it. Does not mean you forget your lessons. Lessons are there for the keeping. Lessons are there for us to remember not to make the same mistake, and not the lesson that that person learned, the lesson that you learned. You don't, otherwise we forget our lessons. We remember the lesson the other person should have learned from it, and then we remind them after that. When we find them in the same situation, you did not learn this lesson. What did you learn? What was your lesson? What did you apply? Yeah. So at no point of time are we supposed to forget our lessons. We're supposed to hold on to them with the dhriti that Bhagwanji gives us.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I have one more on this. You just talked about the forgive-forget conversation, and also talked about the context. Now, the moment you talk about the context, the forgiveness is with the context, and the context then will bring all the memories back that made it.
Yeah.
And then the point that we are trying to relate here is, when those memories comes back, the emotions don't come back with it.
100%. You can just relate the facts. You know what happened. You know what was this happened, then this was the result. But there is no emotion now. There is no emotions, devoid of emotions, facts. It is what happened. Good, cool, happened. We learned from it and we moved on. But if you're reliving the memory with the equal amount of emotion and you're going through that situation again, you're basically reliving it today. And that's what we do to ourselves. Situation एक चीज हुई, किसी ने मुझे एक बार एक चीज बोली, उसके बाद वही चीज मैंने अपने दिमाग में 1000 बार बोली. 1000 times I'm repeating it to myself. So that situation that had to happen to me once, now I make a hell for my life by repeating it 1000 times in my head, and I'm unable to let it go. This is how we make hell for ourselves. Our mind is the heaven and the hell. We created ourselves and we live heaven and hell on this earth in our mind. Our mind has got amazing capacity. Right? Half the time, not half, probably 90% of the time, we use our mind against us only. And once we start to learn and apply, do enough chintan and manan on Gita, we start to use our mind using the right principles for our uddhar, for our benefit. We actually, in most cases, unconsciously use our mind against us. When we berate ourselves, when we tell ourselves we are not worthy, when we are not good enough. These are the ever constant conversations in our head. We don't forgive ourselves for the mistakes we made as children. We don't forgive ourselves for the small things we did wrong when we were young. And we are constantly berating that small child of 5, 7, 10-year-old child that made certain choices in their lives. And we decide that's who we are. And we are unable to let that go. And then we continue to live the rest of our lives through that lens. And we treat people the same way then. At some point of time, we decided that this is who I am or who I need to be to deal with life. because of some one strong incident that happened, and that's it. And we hold on to it. We become that person and we treat everybody else like that. Using our mind against ourselves. Did we finish this shloka? I think we did. So we've got 15 minutes, so maybe we'll stop the class here now. I would have liked to finish the next one as well. We only did 2 shlokas today. Okay, no worries. Let's do some takeaways. I think should I stop? No, I think we'll take the takeaways in the recording as well. Okay. Who wants to go first? Visalakshi, your hand is up, huh? Since then. So you'll have to start with the takeaways now. So Bhagwanji's way of saying Visalakshi goes first.
So my takeaways today, whatever you are doing, like you have to feel like God is within you. So every time, like whatever, even the personal things you are like taking shower, brushing the teeth, whatever it is always remember is God is within you. The perspective of doing is completely changed. Like how the consciously or in the present, every time you're, if the mind is going out, when whatever you do work, and then you have to bring it back, your God is within you, that will change the entire perspective of life. That is my takeaway.
Correct. Very good takeaway. But my question back to you would be, how would you remember? The word is so glittery and glamoury.
Okay, so like usually that helps, the yoga helps, because before yoga and after I'm learning yoga. So before I get distracted much, but once I start learning yoga, that helps me. If I drink the water also, I consciously drink. Sip by sip I drink. I take shower. Mind goes, still the mind goes out, but I gently, how many times you are distracted, it doesn't matter. How many times you are bring the mind back to the work is very important. So that way, if the God is within you, you are always living, is because we feel right that we are not realizing the God is within you first. Now you are realizing God is within you. So that will help you. This is a practice. It's a day-to-day practice. So taking a shower, even personal work, how many once you take away everyone, if when you take shower, so many things has come to you, right? But just feel the water is touching your skin from the feet. You are taking the shower. That will help. Actually I started with my personal work. When I brush my teeth, I consciously brush my teeth. When I take the shower, I consciously. So the God it's helping you to do more things.
So yoga is, from what I hear, yoga is one way to build that consciousness, right? Swadhyay, the satsang that we have, is another way to build that consciousness. The swadhyay we are supposed to do on a daily basis, another reminder, right? The point is we don't remember all the time. We go out into the world, and then, after 1 hour, somebody screams us, there, all the teaching is gone. And you're suddenly, upset about it, right? How did that person do something? You get an angry mail from your client. That's it. You're like, how dare this person did that? What is going on? Or you're screaming at your team members, right? So the thing is, what you just described is your constant meditation, right? Constant meditation on Bhagwanji. And this is what Bhagwanji is trying to teach us as well. But how do we actually do that? How do we practically do that? It's good to read about it. How do you actually practically make sure that every single thing that you're doing is conscious? It's okay to get up in the morning, first thing you do, brushing and everything is you're fine. How do you hold on to that state of mind, meditative state of mind, when you're out shopping, you're in a mall, you're watching a movie, you're interacting with your peers in your office? How do you hold on to it?
Yeah, it's a day-to-day practice. You start with first a few things. You cannot do all the things first. So you have to start with at least your personal, whatever you are doing, personal things, you have to start with that. And then, right, your mind is distracted. If the 1 hour lesson also, Gita lesson, how many of them completely focused on the, like sometimes his mind goes, like sometimes his kids are asking something and then mind goes out. And it's you have to bring it back. That consciousness, if you get it, the mind is distracted. If the mind is not distracted, you are next to Buddha or next like sages, right? Mind get distracted. That is the nature of the mind. But how many times you bring it back consciously. That is wherever it is, wherever you are, even shopping also, mind is saying it. Like even 10, if you if like I would like to have more sweets, but okay, if I would like to have 3 sweets or 5 sweets. So okay, so the intellect is guiding. Okay, consciously you can have sweets, but take 1 or 2, not more than that. So consciously is something is guiding you inside when you regular practice of meditation and yoga.
Correct. So yoga and meditation are very, very important. I'll correct you on one thing. Mind's nature is not to get distracted at all.
Okay.
Mind's nature is to hold on to things. And it holds on to things very, very, very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
The job of the intellect is to make sure that mind holds on to the right things and not the wrong things. Because once it's held on to something, it holds on to it very tightly. Try and tell yourself, don't think of this thought. The only thing you will think of would be that thought after that.
Yeah.
Okay. We've heard of that story as well, right? About that lady who tried to get rid of all her problems, and she had gone to Buddha for a problem solving. Maybe next time I will talk about that. But the point is, see, we have to, first of all, we have to tell ourselves, we have to know, we have to acknowledge the truth that we don't remember things all the time. We are constantly distracted. Why is our mind distracted? Why is our experience, if the mind's job is to hold on to something tightly, why is our experience different? Our experience is that mind is very distracted. And that is the case because of ages and ages and ages of practice. We've made it, we've given this habit to our mind. Now we have to change that habit. Okay. And that's why satsang is super important. Swadhyay is very important. Once a week class is not enough, will never be enough. You have to have 10 minutes of swadhyay daily. At some point of time, you have to remind yourself the principle. Read 2 shlokas a day. That's it. 10 minutes. It will remind you. And then do manan chintan on that the entire day. Naam jap. That's why Naam jap is so important. Carry that counter with you at all times. Do the Naam jap at all times, because that counter will be a reminder to you. Constantly remembering, doing Naam jap. Initially, the Naam jap will sometimes take you back into that space of mechanical Naam jap also. Okay. You'll be doing Naam jap, but your mind is still thinking something else. Kab tak hoga? Kab tak hoga? Continue doing that even then. At some stage, your mind will stop and your mind will become sukshma, will become subtle enough for it to learn that now I am actually getting distracted while doing Naam jap. At some point of time, once you've done enough Naam jap to cleanse yourself enough, your mind will start to become more stable. It will actually start to do Naam jap in a more present manner. And then you are in a constant state of meditation. You remember chapter 6, end of Karma Yoga, was meditation. And we read about different forms of meditation. And one of the forms of meditation was that living meditation that we have to do. Constantly doing work and still in meditative state of being. And that Naam jap is a very, very big helpful factor for that. Okay. Sorry, we took a lot of time in this takeaway, but it was a very important takeaway because it's not about knowing the theory. It is about how you're going to apply it in the daily basis, right? That's super important. So we'll do quick takeaways now for everyone because it's already 11:53. We don't want to go beyond the time. So who wants to go next? Yeah, Kavita. After that, Nena.
Just to continue with that, I think the convince the intellect is very important. For example, when you're saying anger, so if we know the effect of the anger in physical, our emotional, our mental, and our spiritual well-being, so the convincing of the intellect. So we convince the intellect, okay, this is what going to happen if we are holding to that anger. Then never lose that calm in the heart. Like, just bring back the heart to the calmness. I think that is where the Naam jap is also really helping. So that is my takeaway.
Absolutely. Intellect is what understands and reflects divinity. Intellect is the closest to Paramatma. So we have to use the intellect correctly. Absolutely correct. That's why all this gyan, right? It illumines what we know, what we don't know, what are our wrongly held notions. It illumines that. Amazing. Thank you. Yes, Nana.
Yeah, so my takeaway would be that every time you feel powerless, what you said was you're away from divinity. So we need to come back to the state of uh, what Gita says, that you have the power to create whatever your life circumstances. So whenever you're powerless, come back to that state. That is one takeaway of mine. And another thing which I found was nature does justice. Mercy is only from the Lord. So those two are the big takeaways from this highly loaded class for me today. Yeah.
Beautiful, Naina. I think that your first takeaway is so important for us to always remember. We are the most powerful beings on the earth, but we are constantly in a space of, victimizing ourselves by giving the locus of control to the VVGP outside of us. And it's time to take it back. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Yeah, Banish.
Yeah, so this thing where you talked about the time element, right? Kala, that God is everlasting. Like we talked about yugas, so yugas will go, Mahapralaya will come. Even after everything is destroyed, God will still be there. So it's like knowing that we are not praying to a specific like deity or an idol or something, but who is like beyond all this. So we need to keep that in mind, who we are praying to, or who we are, or like who God is. And then also about last week we talked about like anger, that we shouldn't show anger where we are in space of power to our children or old parents or helper. Today we learned the same thing about forgiveness also. So we have to forgive where we are in space of power again. So that is a big takeaway, that where I am not in space of power. Let's say if I'm working and I have a manager, I don't shout at my boss, I don't shout at my team members, I don't shout at I don't shout where I am not in control. But somehow subconsciously we know that here I am in control and I can shout at these people. So that is yeah, a thing to remember.
Amazing. Absolutely. Right. So it's a big takeaway that I'm trying to practice as well. Shalini Didi told me. I remember I was at her place and I was telling her about my stuff with anger, right? Last 10 years I've been working on this. And she told me, that's it. From today onwards, if you even once, if you display any sort of anger on anybody who is, your employees, your team members, your helper, your family, anybody, your children, any child, whatever, like you do it even once from today, you're going to personally message me and I'm going to give you a prashchit to do. So, and that she, with her power of tap, it has been such a, that is just unbelievable, right? Like exactly what you're saying, supremely important.
For me, I think it was basically to focus on our own thoughts and bow, and then let go of actions and the outcomes of it. I think we've talked about this multiple times in the Gita class, but today specifically with reference to the Shama or forgiveness kind of example, I think it still reinforces the same point, because when we're discussing that, that's the Kakuli's question, that if someone did bad to you, if you forgave them, but then something bad happened to them, then the emotions come back. I think those emotions won't come back if in the first place when we forgive them, if our thought and how were in the right place.
Exactly.
So I think that is a big takeaway for me.
Yeah. And you know what is interesting is, why will those emotions not come back? Coming back to what Sachin was also saying, or Kakuli was saying, is because you finish that incident. Once you've forgiven, you finish that incident. It's gone. It's over. It is not a continuation. So when something else happens to this person, it's a fresh incident, which requires its fresh set of ability to think about how to deal with it. Maybe that person needs help. You will have a completely new set of emotions that are unlinked to a previous situation. If you've linked it to a previous situation, then you've not broken that connection. You've not closed that chapter. That means that chapter is still open for you. You see?
It's so difficult to finish it completely, to close the chapter. I mean, I don't know. Never happened with me like that. We fully close something.
And if we don't close that chapter, Bhagyashree, the amount of baggage we will carry with us will be humongous.
How to fully close?
One of the exercises is a real forgiveness exercise. Okay, wake up in the morning. The first thing, and I don't know at what time you can or cannot wake up, but in general, Brahma Muhurat is the best time to do forgiveness exercises. Even if you don't, if you can, that would be the best time because the energies are really aligned to help you get most out of your practice. Otherwise, multiple times during the day, whoever you find yourself, like whatever you find yourself holding on to, just forgive and heal. Send healing energy to that situation in the past, to that person in the past that you're holding on to. That feeling that you're holding on to, let it go. Just say it again and again and again. I heal. And don't use negative words, use positive words to reinforce. Heal the situation, heal the person, forgive them, send them love, send them empathy. Try and see what were they dealing with, which caused them to behave in a certain manner with you. And understanding their situation, really understanding their situation, will give you so much of empathy for them. And you can see how they got forced into behaving in a certain manner. And then you forgive them. Do that again and again and again and again, consciously. And that's called the, it's a very, very good exercise to do. The more you do it and the more love you send, to a situation, to a person, even if it is your old self, your 5-year-old self, your 7-year-old self, send love to that child. Send love to your parents if you're holding on to a grudge against your parents. They did this to me at that time. If it were not for this, then blah, blah, blah. We do it all the time. Send love and send healing energy. It will, over a period of time, dissolve away. It is a very powerful exercise.
But you said you forgave yourself first. So I'm not able, for some situations, I'm not even able to forgive myself. I'm like, I did that mistake. Why did I do it? I shouldn't have done it at all. There are things, multiple things where I even consciously try to forgive myself, but I can't even forgive. I have not been able to forgive even myself for some few things. Maybe I have to like do it every day. And
you have to, and you have to start with yourself, Bhagyashree. Who you are with yourself is how you are in the rest of the world. The person you are most angry with is yourself. And that anger then comes out against others. You have to be kinder to yourself. We all have to be. We are all very unkind to ourselves. All of us. Constantly. We are the biggest criticizers of our own selves. The biggest, the most negative voice is the voice in our own head. And that's why it has to start with ourselves. Charity begins at home. Start with yourself. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think two of them very quickly. One is on forgiveness, which we have spoken about. That was a really big takeaway. What is that final stage of your thought where you know that you've forgiven and forgotten? And number two, also, which because it comes up a lot on Om Swamiji's discourses and books, is about thought, how to arrest at the thought level. And I'm sure my Swadhyay and Namjap is now helping to bring that, instilling the bit more of calmness, to give away on the irritation thought, and maybe anger a bit more, because I think Obiji tells me that I'm a bit more calmer because you always throw it at home. Because that's the place where no one will come back and attack you. And yeah, I'm trying to work on that. And Namjap really helps and Swadhyay really helps. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
So my takeaway was, when you, of course, in addition to so many points which others said, symbolically, as you said, Kali is black because she's depicted as burned because of the anger. So my takeaway is that whenever there is a situation I'll be angry, I'll remember that, this is what anger does to you. Of course, the deity has significance, so she's depicted like that. But for me, the takeaway is that, this is what the anger will do to you, if you hold on to it,
Absolutely. So another thing here, right? Anger is not bad. Anger is a force of energy. It has tremendous energy in it, tremendous force in it. Okay. When we are not conscious, that energy will take over and that energy will then destroy. Like fire. Fire is not good or bad. Fire has been created. There is a reason for its existence. There is fire in our belly that helps us digest the food, right? There are 7 types of fires. It's when fire becomes uncontrolled that it can burn the entire city down. It can burn the entire forest down. Every emotion has a life of its own, including anger. When anger is uncontrolled is when it goes down this way. If you have anger inside of you, you cannot kill anger. You cannot extinguish anger. It's an energy that is there inside of you as Bhagwanji's vibhuti. You have to channelize it, recognize it, channelize it. And channelize it not in front of people who are weaker than you or people who can't strike back. Channelize it for situations that are more powerful than you. And channelize it to come out as himmat, as abhay, fearlessness, which is the most important, the first Devi quality. Transform anger to give you energy to become fearless in the face of difficult situations. So it's an energy. There's nothing that is right or wrong with this word. It's about how we use them or don't use them and allow them to take over. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Anita, you want to share something?
I want, but it's like already 12:05. That's why I was holding.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's really late. And just for Sachin and Bhavna, she's joining in from US. So for her, it's midnight. Great commitment. And Naina joins at 4 in the morning. So it's crazy. So thank you, everyone. It has been wonderful class. Thank you so much, Narayan. We'll do the closing shlokas in closing class. And the others who've not shared their takeaways, please send it in the class later. Okay. Kakuli, we'll do the
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ